Welcome everybody to the Credential Engine Application Showcase. This is our January showcase. Welcome back to anyone who joined us for our December showcase. My name is Carrie Sampson, and I am the Manager of Communications here at Credential Engine. I'm also joined today by our Executive Director, Scott Cheney, our Programs and Operations Manager, Emily Raffel, as well as our SIU tech team, Scarlett, Nate, and David. And they're going to be helping out with facilitating this webinar today on the technical end. I would like to, welcome you again, and we're really pleased to share with you this sneak peek into how Credential Engine's Credential Registry can be used by employers, with presentations today from Jamie Francis from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and John Chasen from Verif-y. And just a couple of housekeeping items. As with any webinar, we're going to try and keep you on mute if you are not asking a question, if you're using your computer speaker. If you've dialed in and need to take another call, please jump off and rejoin us once you are able, instead of putting us on hold. You should also see a chat box to your left. You should see we were chatting away already. You are welcome to ask questions via the chat box, and we will get to those and make sure that everybody's questions are answered. So we'll be monitoring those not only for technical questions, but also questions that come through on people's presentations. We'll try to hold some questions to sort of the end, but please consider this and sort of the beginning of many conversations about these applications, and feel free to ask away, and we'll do our best to answer everything for you. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. A couple of days, give us a little time, but will be available on our YouTube channel and also on our website for anyone who wants to review or forward this presentation on. Any initial things that I missed? Scarlett, Scott, anything before I sort of get into a little overview about us? All right.
I'm good on our end.
Okay, great. I will change the slide. Okay. All righty. So for anybody who doesn't know us that well or would like to maybe get to know us a little bit better here today, I'm going to set the stage for our conversation with just a little overview about us. Credential Engine is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing transparency and literacy to all credentials in the marketplace. So what does that mean? It means that we know that there are, or we estimate that there are at least 300,000 different types of credentials in the U.S. alone that are currently being offered, and this includes everything from a traditional diploma or degree to a badge, apprenticeship, license, certificate, you name it. And while this presents an abundance of choices for an education or career pathway, there is currently no clear and common way to search and compare for credentialing information on the web. So, to bring clarity and order to this confusing marketplace, Credential Engine is building the cloud-based Credential Registry to house information about credentials like competencies, assessments, learning opportunities, costs. We're adding in employer signaling, labor market information, and more. All of this about all kinds, all types of credentials. Right now, our registry has about 2,000 credentials submitted to date. We just launched in December. And we have over 300 different kinds of terms we can collect information on through our credential transparency description language. We're continuing to build and expand upon that work this year and build out our registry and our language to create sort of a rich, comprehensive registry for all to access. Click to my next slide. So because our data is open source, This also means that all kinds of stakeholders can access the parts of our data that are most critical to their needs and build applications to help them solve real-world problems. If you joined us last month, we heard from organizations like Academy One, Bright Hive, CAS, Credly, Parchment, and Smart Catalog about the applications that they're building in the education and workforce sectors. And today you're going to hear from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and Verif-y about how they plan to use the Credential Registry and its data to solve problems facing the employer community. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Jamie Francis. She is the Director of Programs and Operations with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Jamie?
Great. Thanks so much, Carrie, and thanks to the Credential Engine team for the invitation and the opportunity to chat with you all about what we're up to at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and our exciting opportunities to work and partner with the Credential Engine team on their Credential Registry. For those who are not familiar with us, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the largest business lobbying organization in the country. We represent companies as small as mom and pop shops, all the way up to Fortune 50 companies, as well as thousands of state and local chambers of commerce across the country. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is a nonprofit affiliate, and there are multiple centers that are housed within the foundation. My team is the Center for Education and Workforce, and we cover everything from early childhood education all the way through workforce development. The problem as we see it and are trying to address with our talent pipeline management initiative is really a focus on the skills gap. And this is no news to anybody on this call that we have jobs without people and people without jobs, as our CEO of the Chamber, Tom Donahue, likes to say. We have been leading an initiative for the past several years now called Talent Pipeline Management, in which we are trying to help assist employers as they attempt to provide their contributions to solving the skills gap issue, to try to close that disconnect of what employees are prepared and able to do versus what employers are needing out of them. So we started the Talent Pipeline Management Initiative back in 2014, in which we're really trying to capitalize on that idea of demand-driven, but also employer-led solutions to closing that skills gap. The Talent Pipeline Management Initiative is now made up of numerous resources that are all available on our website, thetalentsupplychain.org. But more than the resources, it's really made up of the community and the network that we have built of folks around the country who are trying to solve the skills gap within their communities. In October of 2016, we started the Talent Pipeline Management Academy, which has mostly been made up of Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Organization, and industry association leaders. We have now grown this to state-based academies, with our first state-based academy occurring in Michigan in fall of 2017, and we'll be returning to Michigan later on this month, and then expanding into Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as some potential other communities who have expressed interest. As of right now, the main resources that we focus our attention on are the Talent Pipeline Management Curriculum, which is currently available to the public, and again available at our website. And that's really what makes up the facilitation of the Talent Pipeline Management Academy. What I'll have the opportunity to talk to you about today are the web tools that complement that curriculum and the 6 strategies that make up the Talent Pipeline Management approach. On our website, you can also find a number of videos that briefly describe what those 6 strategies are, as well as a brief video that talks about the web tools that we'll be discussing today. And also the case studies of communities and employer partners across the country who we think are doing a great job of exemplifying what talent pipeline management is all about. One of the asks of the employers who participate in talent pipeline management is to address and to be forthright about the hiring requirements for the jobs that are most critical to their businesses. So breaking that down into the skills and the training that is necessary for folks to be able to fill those critical positions successfully. And this is one of the reasons that we're so excited for the opportunity to work with Credential Engine and find such value in the work that they are doing, in that our job is to make folks' lives easier, and our web tool is meant to help our employer partners execute talent pipeline management, as well as share and collaborate with one another. The Credential Registry will allow us to do this in a simpler and more effective way by providing credential and competency information from the registry into our talent pipeline management web tools. We'll also be able to provide them with additional provider information that is currently not available to them. This will be done so in a way that will help our associates be able to execute the talent pipeline management strategies in a more streamlined process, most importantly focusing on what their pain points are. So we will be able to integrate the Credential Registry by pulling in various competency frameworks, the credentials that they are providing in the registry, as well as related learning opportunities and assessments. Now these learning opportunities can range from a single course to an entire degree program, and this type of information is what we will use in the TPM Web Tools so that our employer partners can pull that in from the registry. In addition, the intention is for our employers to be more clear about their needs. That's a common frustration among provider partners. So this Credential Registry will provide a place for provider partners to better understand what the employer needs are via this aggregated data. And then finally, it opens up the opportunity and new doors for employers to learn of providers and what they're offering in terms of the competency and credential requirements that are preferred for building that talent pipeline. So how our web tool works and what you'll see in front of you now is what a home page would look like if you were a TPM administrator coming to the web tool site. So what we're trying to do is to provide a starting point for our TPM network colleagues for them to be able to identify and resolve the pain points that they have identified with their employer collaboratives. I throw out a lot of talent pipeline management terminology, and luckily for our colleagues, the glossary is available on just about every page on the TPM Web Tool. So when we're talking about our employer members, we talk about employer collaboratives, so groups who have come together to focus on that shared pain point or what their starting point is going to be, their focus area, as they go about trying to solve their workforce challenges. So what this web tool does is it provides a various set of tools that complement each of those TPM strategies. This includes surveys, multiple types of surveys. The one that we'll spend most of our attention on is what we call a needs assessment survey. But we also have an opportunity for our employer collaborative members to submit job profiles so that they're able to identify some comparability from one to another, as well as talent flow analysis surveys so that they can better discover where their talent is coming from. But since we're going to be talking mostly about credentials and competencies, we'll talk about that needs assessment survey. And what the output of this web tool allows us to do is to allow for that better communication of what employer hiring needs are. So for a needs assessment survey, employers are able to think through what the business function is that they want to focus on. So what you're seeing on the screen in front of you, an industry focus area for this particular group is on power and energy. And they've identified the business function of public utilities as where they want to spend their attention. So that's something that they have identified as being critical to their needs within the energy sector. But from there, they'll be able to continue to hone in on their focus, and this needs assessment survey provides them the opportunity to do that. So this is where folks who will be a part of an employer collaborative will compile survey data from their own organizations, and then a host organization, a trusted intermediary, which to date has mostly been chambers of commerce, economic development organizations, industry associations, will be able to aggregate that data to identify trends for that specific group. So while we definitely feel that real-time labor market information and state labor market information has an important role to play in terms of identifying a focus, this needs assessment survey allows us to really address the direct needs of the folks who are involved in this particular collaborative. So employers here have the opportunity to identify which are the competencies, the skills, the credentials, the hiring requirements that are most important to those employers. And are they able to identify whether or not they're preferred or required? So it gives them some variability in terms of what's most important to them. A couple of other options that folks have is to include information about employability skills. They could also add if there are work experience requirements that are desired for this particular business function, levels of education. They could even get as specific as if there are security clearance needs, if this is within a cybersecurity space. So lots of variability and options for folks as they want to customize. So as we think about how we will tap into the Credential Registry, our goal is really to make the folks who are going to be using this web tool, we want to make their lives as easy as possible, and the Credential Registry can certainly assist in that process. So what we currently have in our existing library are competency frameworks that exist. You could think of an organization or competency framework like NIMS, but the registry will obviously add many more for our employer members to pull from. So we will be using the Credential Registry in order to streamline this survey process. So rather than our colleagues having to constantly input their own data, they'll be able to pull directly from Credential Registry. And since the registry gets their information directly from the credential owner, it will be able to help our network get this information more directly from the source rather than depending on their folks to have to input it themselves. So what you see on the screen in front of you is an example of how we might use something like the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council and the competency frameworks that they have built. What you're seeing here for this MSSC example, it includes actual competencies assessed to earn a certificate. So what we're hoping to do is to be able to duplicate this effort so that no matter what industry or what business function you're focusing on, you have a plethora of options to pull from as you're thinking through which of those competencies and skills make the most sense for the critical positions that your organization is focused on. On this next page, once a needs assessment survey has been completed by an employer collaborative member, what we are looking for the web tool to do is to then compile that competency data that was identified by the employer. So again, as an individual employer collaborative member, you're putting in your information for your own organization, the needs that you feel are important. But as you're working with a number of colleagues within your industry, we're able to provide that aggregate data for the entire group. So the selected competencies can then be actually shared back to the Credential Registry as a framework after an entire employer collaborative member group has agreed to kind of what it is that they feel is most important for those critical business functions or critical jobs that they've identified. If they would like, they can also then share it back to our Talent Pipeline Management Library that is available on the web tool. So that way for future collaboratives that are created, if they want to learn from previous practice what has worked well for others, they would be able to look to this framework that was built by others within their network. So along with the competencies, that assessment information can provide a real learning opportunity for folks within our TPM network relating back to the pain points that they feel are most important for skills development. This also allows them to identify which providers they would be able to look to who are providing the kinds of credentials and competencies that they're looking for. So this is a very exciting opportunity for us because it can be really informative to our employer members to learn of providers who are offering the desired competencies and credentials that they were perhaps not familiar with. So this certainly opens up new doors and allows our folks to have greater access to a much bigger list, a more direct and customized list based on their needs. So we're certainly grateful for the opportunity to be able to work with and partner with the colleagues at Credential Engine to make use of the Credential Registry. We feel that it definitely will provide an opportunity for those within the Talent Pipeline Management Network to have a better understanding of which providers are available, what competency frameworks they can work into their needs assessment surveys. Ultimately, our goal is for employees to be connected to jobs faster. And we think that with a tool like the TPM Web Tool and the support of the Credential Registry, employers will have an opportunity to better communicate what their skills needs are. Providers will have the opportunity to be more responsive to those needs in a more clear-cut way. We think that there's a lot of power in employers being able to speak with one voice. One of the more common frustrations I think a lot of institutions have is that they feel that they're hearing so many things, so much noise from different employers about the same program. So if we can get them speaking a similar language and doing so in a way that taps into the industry standards and ways in which an industry speaks about positions, then we think ultimately it will be an opportunity for educational institutions to have better placement rates and certainly for employers to get the right talent for the right job at the time that they need it. So with that, I'll close out my presentation and looking forward to questions at the end.
Thanks so much, Jamie. As Scarlett has prompted in the chat pod, please feel free to ask some questions if there are any burning questions. Oh, I see multiple attendees are typing. So we can take a little bit of a pause to maybe get some of those burning questions out of the way. I do see one question about whether the slides from this month's and last month's presentations will be available. So we will be posting this presentation, and we have last month's presentation on our YouTube page and to our website, and I will be asking for permission to post the slide decks themselves as a resource. So we will have resources for you available after this presentation. I see that there are, okay, we've got some questions. So first question from Elle. Are longitudinal student data systems connected to the TPM Web Tool? If not, is that something that the CEW is looking to do in the future?
Question, Elle. At this time, state longitudinal student data systems are not connected to the TPM Web Tool. What we have thus far are mostly existing framework competencies from various industry associations. I'm not sure that it is something that we will look to do in the future. There is, as part of our talent flow analysis survey, we are looking to specific employer data on where talent is coming from. So that sometimes will allow us to identify providers similar to what Credential Registry will allow us to do in the sense of being able to identify what programs are offered by which institutions because a person has participated in that specific program. So we'll see. There's still a lot of opportunity and potential within the web tools that has, as of yet, been unexplored, but at this time, no.
Thanks. We have another burning question from Jeff. Could the partners' ratings of the competencies be preserved and shared with the educational providers? So on the scale of 1 to 5, could that be shared?
Most certainly, and we look to the host organization partners to decide what and how they want to share the information collected at the aggregate level. So anytime that a host organization is pulling together their employer collaborative, you know, the hope is certainly to use this information in an instructional way and in a helpful way to provide our partners, but ultimately it has to be their decision how they want to share that data. And for everyone to do so in an appropriate way that handles privacy and proprietary needs.
Great, thank you. And Elle, I think Jason Tishko is typing an expanded answer in the chat box, helping you answer that SLDS question. So if there are no other burning questions, do keep them coming. We're going to have an official sort of Q&A after we hear from Verif-y. But keep chatting away over there. We'll capture all of those. But for right now, I would like to turn things over to John Chasen, Director of Business Development with Verif-y. John?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, guys. Jimmy, that was a great presentation. It's super interesting. You guys are really deep into the guts of a really cool issue. I'm giving something that's a bit more high level, but I'm very open to answering people's questions if you have detailed questions in chat or just afterward on a one-to-one basis. So again, yeah, John Chasen. I run business development for Verif-y. We are a revenue stage startup based in Philadelphia, and we're essentially a digital credential platform, I guess is the best way to put it. Very grateful to Credential Engine. You guys are doing some super interesting stuff, and in the way that we're going to walk through this problem, definitely helps us with efficiencies, and in turn helps hiring companies with efficiencies. Oops. So Verif-y, we've pioneered an encrypted credential verification platform that runs on the blockchain. Our goal is to work with hiring companies to reduce costs and make better informed decisions using this cutting-edge digital platform. And we look at individuals, in this case job candidates, benefiting from the platform because it provides them control and security of their professional information or personal information. And in today's example, we're looking at specifically college and university degrees. So the problem that we're looking at in this example is the speed at which hiring companies receive verification of candidates' credentials is impacted when candidates input incorrect data into their verification paperwork. And predominantly this has happened historically through background check processes, and we're looking to kind of move the sharing of this information onto the Verif-y platform. For example, candidates may input a wrong degree when they're filling out application paperwork. So even if they got their college or university information correct, that incorrect degree itself, in terms of slowing down the verification of that person's education credentials, can slow the hiring process. And that's really something that we see a big efficiency in working with Credential Engine. So when we look at a solution, if we sync Verif-y with the Credential Engine registry, our platform immediately becomes more efficient by presenting only the correct degree names in drop-down menus. And if you think about the number of colleges and universities in this country and the number of degrees each one of them offers, once Credential Engine actually amasses all of this data, it becomes very efficient for a platform like ours. And as a result, hiring companies who are paying clients, they avoid unnecessary processing on our part, and that ensures that they get accurate information and it gets verified more promptly and, importantly on our platform, more securely. So our current system right now, we verify the educator, which is through open source databases, and we don't preload actual credential descriptions because we don't have a good source for those. But then we do verify the job candidate's claimed credential. And the goal in the future with working with Credential Engine is that we do all three of these. We add this preloading of credential descriptions, which just brings an efficiency to our entire platform. So I'll walk through this very simple case one in which we're currently not synced with the Credential Engine registry. And again, in the previous presentation, you had a lot of great drill downs in terms of actual menus. We've kind of kept things not so under the hood, but again, I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. So the credential verification flow works like this. You have a hiring company requesting a job candidate to submit education data using the Verif-y platform. In that case, the hiring company is a client on our platform, and the manual process right now is that the candidate knows their college, but let's say instead of the correct human psychology degree that they actually had, let's say back in the 90s, the candidate can't remember the proper information and they just input only psychology because they knew it was generally psychology. So the result of this is that there's bad data input, and bad data in causes problems. So in this case, the platform rejects the degree name due to bad data, and it slows down the job verification process. And what happens is that the platform has to take time relying on artificial intelligence and other methodologies that we have running in the background. And at some point in time, let's say it's a week rather than a day, spits out the credential verification. So the problem there very clearly is that the bad data lengthens the verification process to a week, and it gives the hiring company potentially less confidence because it takes longer, and also they may have wanted to act more quickly on that candidate, and they can't. And so a very simple case 2 that we're looking at in the future when we do sync with the Credential Engine registry, the hiring company does a similar request, says, look, you've got to submit your education history over the Verify platform. But this is a drop-down menu process rather than a manual process. So the candidate, maybe they don't remember the exact degree, but the menu options are limited to the Credential Engine data, and that this candidate in this case chooses human psychology from the menu, and that's the correct data because they are only limited to things that are real data. And in that case, it is a very prompt candidate credential verification, and we look at that as a solved problem. It's a one-day process, which is much better than what we're kind of seeing in the other side, which is, say, 5 to 7 working days. And so just from a sheer steps process, our current process goes through submitting an improper degree, platform review, platform identification of bad data, and then this longer methodology of the platform pursuing proper data, and then a verification. And when we look at this sync, we take it from 5 steps to 2. And the fewer steps become a much more efficient hiring company experience. And since the hiring companies are our direct clients, that's a big deal for us, but we also feel that clearly it's important to them. So in terms of the benefits to the partners and stakeholders, the hiring company becomes more efficient in its process. They have a much faster time to receive the yes, no, and verification so they can make a decision. And it generates a more confident decision. And our whole thing is this is at a lower cost because we're a platform. The data stays on the platform. That's our real benefit when we show up talking to a client, is it's a lower cost, but also that we're more efficient. And this is lowering risk because it's secure, and we provide chain of integrity on all of our verifications. So the clients have visibility into that chain of integrity, which they like, and from their perspective, that's a nice risk mitigation factor. It's a benefit to us because we're improved by the integration with Credential Engine. And in general, it's beneficial to the job applicants because it gives them this empowerment of owning their own backgrounds and controlling who has access to their credentials. And this is happening in a much faster, more prompt manner when they have only good data to select from. So again, pretty simple high-level overview. This is one aspect of our platform, but a very important aspect of our platform. And I would be really curious about anybody's questions either now or in the question period. And thank you guys very much for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John, for sharing with us. I see people have been very busy in our chat box. We had one question for the Chamber Foundation about employer collaboratives and the size and employer participation in their needs assessments. And it turns out the answer is it varies, so that question's already been answered. But I do have a couple questions for you, John, already. We have a question from Colin. Verify breaks an individual degree into credential components and then uses those components to verify an applicant's skills. Is this accurate?
We're not necessarily verifying skills at this point in at this stage. Sorry, is that my connection? That's better.
Yeah.
We're not verifying skills. We're really just verifying that the credential is accurate. So did that person, that individual, receive the specific degree from the institution at that specific date?
Great.
Skills verification is something that we may look to get into in the future, but not.
Great, great. And it's worth noting that things like competencies associated with that particular credential, which might get to that sort of skills question, is information as one of the data points that we are collecting in our credential registry. So you could look up that credential and sort of see what competencies have been listed that are associated with it. So you can still get that information, but that's, thank you, John. I have a second question for you. This is from Wes. How are you addressing fraud? Are you confirming the individual earned the specific degree from a specific institution listed?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that we're addressing fraud. First of all, in these situations, all of the individuals are anchored by a hiring company pushing the application out to them. So there is some initial level of kind of knowledge of who it is. We then do an email verification on the person so that we get an email that it's connected to. And then we go and, specifically for myself on the platform, I went to the University of Vermont and I have an Asian Studies degree in 1992. So the platform verified that I claimed that I had that degree and that indeed I do have that degree from the University of Vermont. So it's a larger data set that we verify against. All of those individual data points being verified at the college level or university level, the degree level, the concentration level, and also the year itself.
Wonderful. I have a follow-up from Colin. So how is Verify different than just submitting a transcript?
Transcripts are pretty easy to forge. Actually, I have a friend who is who runs part of the business school here in Philadelphia at Temple, and they accept PDF transcripts from a lot of foreign language students or foreign students in foreign languages, and they'll admit kind of candidly that they figure upwards of half of them are somewhat, if not completely, fraudulent. And every once in a while they catch them, but they don't have a very good way of doing that. So we've got 2 points of data here. The individual is actually uploading the data to the system, and then we go out and confirm that data with other sources. So this is not just a receive and accept methodology. It's using multiple points of verification.
Thank you. Another question for Verify. This is from Tanya. If an employer requires a set number of credit hours in a specific discipline, is that something that Verify can also confirm has been met?
So for a few of the universities, we could do that because those universities are very active on our platform. I think that that's something that we would probably push out as a later feature, but it makes a lot of sense because I believe that you're talking, say, pre-degree credit hours rather than an actual degree, and that's data that certainly can be verified from most colleges and universities. But we're not actually doing that, but we certainly could do it and probably will.
Great. Any other questions? I know we just burned through a lot of questions for Verify, but we do have plenty of time for additional questions for either Verify or the Chamber Foundation about their TPM project. So any other questions at this time, either on the phone or I guess via your speaker or from the chat box? Was that a potential question?
And everyone should now be unmuted on the phone line, so if you would like to ask your question via the phone, you can do that, or you can, of course, continue typing in the chat.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that there will be some follow-up questions that sort of hit you at the end of the day. I know that's always what happens to me. But in the interest of giving you guys a little bit of extra time back to your afternoon, I did just want to once again thank both the U.S. Chamber Foundation, Jamie, and John from Verif-y for joining us this afternoon, as well as all of you for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about sort of how the Credential Registry can be used, the applications within the employer community. As I mentioned, we had a showcase last month that focused on some other education and workforce applications, and we already have a number of participants scheduled for our webinar next month. So Academy, LRNG, and NOCD have all agreed to join us to talk a little bit more about the applications that they're cooking up to use the Credential Registry's data. So mark your calendars for February 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern. There's also a link in the PowerPoint that you'll get with a link to our Eventbrite, so you can sign up for that. And we will be also having a number of other presentations throughout the year, so please stay in touch with us. Keep checking back with our website. You can follow us on Twitter at CredEngine, or you can email us, tweet at us, Facebook us, LinkedIn us. We are here to share everything that we are doing with you, and we're just so excited to see where this takes us in 2018. Before I close, are there any final questions, comments, or concerns? I see Allison wants a link to our YouTube channel. Yes, we can get that off to you. I think if you go to YouTube, you can just, Scarlett's got it. Great. Any other comments or questions before we close for the day? All right, then. Thank you so much for your time, and you'll get some follow-up and some new information from us soon. Stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.